the Woo Hypothesis Redux. My very first quasi-theory was revealed as part of the Squatcher's Lounge podcast on October 7th, 2015, almost 3 years ago. That podcast is titled, Man Cast the Same Bigfoot Tracks 300 Miles Apart, Squatcher's Lounge Podcast Season 3, Episode 40. It was a good episode and is well worth watching or re-watching for us long-term Squatcher's Loungers. The title of the theory was the Woo Hypothesis. It is high time to readdress that hypothesis. My motivation for doing so has been my rereading of all of John Keel's books. He's got a lot of big, hairy, red, glowing-eyed, apish creatures popping out of, going back into, and otherwise associated with UFOs in those books. Much of the following has been cut, pasted, edited, and otherwise rewritten from that first quasi-theory, as opposed to my usual method of ripping off Wikipedia. Come on, cut me a break. I nearly always say when I'm quoting somebody else. Anyways, that first quasi was inspired by the brouhaha over a certain individual who claimed to have observed Sasquatch emerging from and returning to what he called portals. These Sasquatches also exhibited a variety of what are commonly called paranormal phenomena, the which phenomena have come to be termed woo. Termed woo around these parts anyways, and woo as in spooky, as in woo. Now, I am by nature not argumentative. I always assume, as a working hypothesis, that people who have observed and reported Sasquatch engaging in paranormal activities, or woo, are not lying about their observations until proven otherwise. Allow me to interject here that personally I think that there are almost certainly is or are one or more species of unidentified upright walking apes running about the planet, genus or genera being unknown. I will now present my hypothesis concerning areas where Sasquatch have been exhibiting woo. Simply put, the hypothesis is this. These places have a bad case of the fairies. That is to say, the good folk, the gentry, the Ailshi, as in Banshee and Pictshee, the Celtic terms for these annoying buggers. Those that take an animal form are called pukas. Just as in the case of our Bigfoot, every continent, every older culture has stories about non-physical entities that can delude humans and sometimes manifest a seeable form, make audible noises, produce smellable odors, induce emotions in the observer, and generally make things go bump in the night. John Keel proposed that such entities are hostile to humans and come from some other dimensions with naughty intentions. I think they are perfectly natural entities that occasionally like to flabbergast us. The form they assume is taken from our minds and the current surrounding culture, as are their actions, which is why much of what they do is inexplicable, since much of what is in our minds and our cultures is equally inexplicable, at least to a rational mind. I personally have occasionally run into some of these woo critters. My experiences with them are described in several other quasi-theories I've done. Now, where do these creatures come from? They come from wherever subatomic particles pop out from and disappear back to, where photons that are quantum entangled talk to each other. A higher order Riemannian phase space, of which our world is a multiply connected subset of that higher order. In other words, the astral plane. That said, any of these beings that have the time to waste on dorking about with us humans are of a low order and not very bright. Some are quite territorial and radiate anger and hostility. I chased one around the basement of an old house once. They back off when confronted. At least they back off when I confront them. I don't know about you sissies. They don't do portals, but they can sure make you see one, along with demons, guardian Ewoks, mind-speaking forest people, or what have you. They're the sylphs, the naiads, the dryads of Greek mythology, and the lower-order devas of Hinduism. Sometimes these days they are called nature spirits. So in conclusion, if the Bigfoot you see comes from a portal, that ain't a Bigfoot, it's a bloody fairy. You may read the text of this hypothesis on my blog, My Blatherings, at bydin.com. That's BHAIDIN.com. Or you can listen to it on my YouTube channel. There's a ton of Dean Coopers there. Just search and scroll until you see the guy who looks like an old wizard.